How am I on the fence? Hold on a
disappointed.
second. What am I on the fence about? And I will absolutely not be on the fence on this. Brad, you're absolutely a liar. You just said Vancouver is better on both sides of the ball than Portland.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Look
but
at
the Portland's
Portland's
attack
defensive
is
record.
miles.
They don't defend
Okay,
that.
I'm saying.
Sasha, come on now, behave. I'll give you Evander maybe in the mix
So
for the best
Vancouver's
number
away
10
from-
defensively.
Are you guys gonna listen and let me finish my point?
Welcome into This Is MLS. I am Kaylin Kyle, filling in for the lovely Jillian Sakovits, who is currently on a flight over to California to cover the U.S. Open Cup final between Sporting Kansas City and LAFC. Alongside me, Bradley Wright Phillips, Kaylin Carr, and from afar, Sasha Kleshin. Guys, thanks for having me back, first and foremost.
It's nice to have you back. Have you heard? Kaylin's back in these streets. Not like that. The football streets. The football streets.
It's like, where are we going with that?
Talk to me. You're now playing in co-ed?
I got a text just before we went on asking me to fill in, so I had to unretire, resubmit all my paperwork. I keep coming back, you know? It's like I'm waiting for my Dax McCarty tour, maybe for people to celebrate me, but yeah, I can't stay away from it.
Better or worse performance than what we saw Sasha in the U.S. Open Cup final earlier this year?
I cover a little more ground, probably.
Ooh.
But I don't think I have the assist. I'm more giving away balls in the back and trying to 1-2 my way out of everything.
All right, well, as someone that is not giving the ball
Hey,
away, let's...
Kaylin Kyle.
Uh-oh.
I know you're supposed to welcome me to the show.
I did welcome you.
You did welcome.
I did welcome you. Roll
I
the tape
wanna-
back.
I know you did. I'm saying I want to welcome you to the Evander bandwagon. He got the jersey on. He's the best number 10 in the league. Welcome. I hope you stay for a while.
You know what? I'm just wearing this because it goes good with my fall boots. I'm wearing some really nice red boots. I'm still not sure if he's the best number 10 in Major League Soccer. He's also suspended this coming weekend, but we'll get to that later on in the show. But let's get to a match that's going to play a huge factor in the Supporters Shield. Currently, Inter Miami fighting for the best regular season record. They are on 64 points, New England Revolution set the points record back in 2021 with 73, followed by LAFC 72. Now, Inter Miami's remaining schedule, they do take on Charlotte, then they play the Columbus Crew, Toronto FC, and the New England Revolution. So difficult schedule when you look at taking on the Columbus Crew and that October 2nd game. So Sasha, coming to you, can they do it? They almost need to be perfect in these final 4 matches.
Unfortunately for the Miami fans out there, no, they will not. And it comes down to the game in Columbus. They have to take 3 wins and a draw in their last 4 games. That game at Columbus is very difficult because Columbus has somehow found their way back into the Supporters Shield race. Granted, it's a long shot, but it comes down to that game, and I don't see them winning on the road in Columbus. They've been very good. They've found ways to win against all teams this year, but the game against Columbus will be tough. Even this game this weekend against Charlotte, who is coming off a 4-0 victory at home, they're going to be feeling themselves. They're going to be feeling good. I think they're a little bit more organized. We saw Tim Ream playing like a left back. I think Charlotte poses a problem for Miami this weekend. I don't think they get the points record this year.
I got to say, I'm with Sasha. You look at those next 2 fixtures, Charlotte and Columbus. Inter Miami not in great form. 2 ties, not looking too convincing. I got to go with Sasha. It's going to be tougher than people think.
It's a difficult one because Inter Miami dropping a potential 6 points these last 2 games with those late game equalizers against Atlanta and NYCFC. Now switching over to the Columbus Crew. They have 1 game in hand over Inter Miami. Could they do it? Could they fight them for the Supporters Shield? Looking at the remaining schedule, Kaylin Carr, DC United, Inter Miami, everyone has that one circled. Then they play the Union, New England Revolution, and the New York Red Bulls.
Well, Sasha and Brad are opening the door for me for this Columbus Crew take. I think this has reopened as far as a conversation goes. And if you think of them dropping 2 points against Charlotte potentially, and look at their last 2 matches. You can just look at the recent results at Atlanta United and then at New York City. And I think part of that is because of the dynamic that happens where you have 44,000, 60,000. Everybody's giving them their best game, but the Crew don't face that. They have the respect, of course, but the Crew don't have to deal with that. They have the Campeones Cup. We're filming this before that happens. They do have an awkward one in the international window, but even when they've rested and rotated, they've started Rossi and Cucho Hernandez. They've shifted halves at times. They've gotten contributions from Arfston, Aziel Jackson. And these are matches they're still taking all 3 points from. So I don't really see a huge red flagged. Of course, the big one is going up against Inter Miami at home, which will be just a massive match. But if they can start to tilt that, they can at least make this thing interesting.
Looking at the Columbus Crew, though, for you, BWP, they do have the Campeones Cup. They've been in a lot of finals. I mean, just looking, coming off the Leagues Cup final as well. Will it go, I know there's only 4 games left, but will the tired legs start to show up, especially against that Inter Miami game on October 2nd?
Okay, I don't think so. I think we've seen great examples this season of when Wilfred Nancy, like Kalen touched on, when he's rotated the side, they've answered the questions. Now they're fully rested. They'll be ready for this Campeones Cup. When they get through that, they'll look down towards the end of the season. They have the depth. They have players that can come in and win games. And I think they're in a perfect place. After the Campeones Cup, I think they go on and cause some problems down the line.
The other factor I see is they control matches and play it on their terms. And sometimes Inter Miami, as matches stretch on, it goes into a bit of a tactics-free 5v5 chaotic style. We saw it at the end of New York City. We saw it against Atlanta United, and they have the horses to be able to carry them over the line. But sometimes when it's not on your terms, crazy things can happen in MLS. You only need a few of those to go against you to open the door for Columbus.
You guys are painting a pretty picture out there, but I got to be honest, let's bring it all back down to earth. The odds of Columbus actually winning the Supporter Shield has got to be like 5%. I mean, they have to be perfect towards the end of the season and hope that Miami continues to stumble, which they haven't done this season. So I don't think Miami gets the points record. Okay, but they still took a point in both those 2 games, right? Like, they're not like they're going out and losing games. They're in every game. And look at the schedule for Miami in the final stretch. They play Toronto and New England in the final 2. They're taking 6 points from those games. So while Columbus can make it interesting, I hope they make it interesting. 95% the Shield is still in Miami.
Well, Columbus Crew, they're used to being perfect. Wilfred Nancy's used to being perfect. So you just never know. But let's paint the picture out west, because it's a very different story. Looking at LAFC, we were all very excited with the addition of Olivier Giroud. But since the Leagues Cup, they have been abysmal, to say the very least. 0-3-2. Sasha, what's been the biggest issue for this LAFC side that in reality should be perfect?
Well, I see 3 issues for LAFC right now. One of them they can't really solve. It's the first one. They're exhausted. They've been playing a ton of games. Their international players have to travel far during the international window to play for their national team. So that's one. The schedule doesn't get easier. I don't know how Steve Cherundolo solves that one. The second is that the attack with Olivier Giroud has not looked anywhere close to what we thought it would or as good as it was before Giroud arrived. So is it possible they go back to just Bogusz, Oliveira, and Bouanga to start games? That might be the answer. The other thing is, and the last one, is the formation. Tactically, when they play with a 4-man backline, they're just not as good, and the statistics show that. They need to go back to a 5-man backline, play that 5-2-3 with those 3 guys that I mentioned up front, and play on the counterattack again. Get back to what made them good during the heat of the summer.
Well, they're not going to have any break because they are playing in the Campeones Cup the Open Cup final against Sporting Kansas City this coming Wednesday, taking on a Cincinnati side that's been sneakily good this season, currently sitting 2nd spot in the East. And it was really interesting. Cincinnati's PR team tweeted a tweet and it said, "We have not had the same starting 11 all season long, but they've been able to get the results." How are they doing this, Kalen? And how difficult is that for FC Cincinnati?
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. This team has had to almost remake itself as the season has gone on with the changing pieces, similar in some ways to LAFC, and still figuring out what their best 11 looks like for Pat Noonan. And the key for them is Lucho Acosta is back. He's the centerpiece. He feels healthy. He needs to be the one leading the line, of course, or just underneath those top 2. And for me, Yuya Kubo has to be up top. That has to be his position. They've used him in different positions. And I really think Orejano, for me, on the right-hand side is where he's most threatening because he can tuck in on that left foot and then go straight to goal. So I think that this team has to sort of use this last stretch to settle on their best 11 because it's those small details where you have that understanding and that continuity. I understand they've had to shift as the season has gone on for a number of reasons, but as you come towards the playoffs, you need to have that familiarity.
And that's why I give them hope. Obviously, it's a team that's done well last season, and this season, Kay, you said it sneakily well. You know, we haven't noticed them too much because they've been inconsistent. But if you show me that character, what they've shown throughout the season, dealing with injuries, towards the end now they lost Lucho Acosta to a little injury, and now he's back. And that's what you need at the end of the season. Lucho Acosta playing out of his skin. His numbers are already amazing this season. But Orejano, is a big one for me. That's another player that takes the weight of just creating and scoring goals for Lucho Acosta. It's big help for Cincinnati. I think if you're playing that team in the playoffs, you got problems.
Orejano's been brilliant for FC Cincinnati this year. Let's take a look right now, currently at our East standings, heading into a massive derby this weekend. Inter Miami, FC Cincinnati, and the Columbus Crew have all booked their ticket into the postgame. Now, looking at the New York Rebels and NYCFC, currently just 3 points separating this massive clash happening this weekend in the Hudson River Derby. What can we expect from both of these sides, gentlemen?
This might be the biggest Hudson River Derby since Brad and I played. We had some games back then when we were the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference. Now, these 2 teams right now, New York Red Bulls and New York City, are not the top 2 teams, but they are battling for that coveted 4th position in the East and the home field advantage that comes with it in the playoffs. The problem right now is that both these teams are on a downward spiral. Red Bulls too many draws this season that they can't turn into wins, and New York City's now 9 games without a win. But throw all of that out the window because this Saturday when these 2 teams meet, it's a derby, it means more. But right now, if New York City can pick up 3 points, they'll jump above the Red Bulls into that 4th position in the East, depending on what Orlando does. But it's a huge opportunity for both teams to put a stranglehold on their position in the standings this weekend.
Considering these 2 teams have never met in the playoffs, if you're talking about on paper, for me, it's definitely the biggest Hudson River derby we've seen. Depending how that goes, I think the race for 4th is so important for both teams because they need home advantage. They're both not playing well at the moment, not scoring a lot of goals. So for me, that 4th place spot is everything. That's the reason for me this is the biggest game of the weekend.
And Kalen, you'll be on the call this weekend, so you've done all the tactical homework. You've talked to the managers. What are you making of this clash?
Well, yeah, I think these guys hit the emotional aspect absolutely. And the concern, I would say, is they're missing Santi Rodriguez for New York City. Picked up a yellow card accumulation, Tanasiewicz as well. And so how do they sort of, once they break pressure, who is the one that's going to then sort of create the game? And that's what they were able to do against New York Red Bull earlier this season. Red Bull's press was off, and they allowed them to play through. They broke those lines, and once you do, you can find space. And for Red Bulls, Emil Forsberg has been the big missing piece for them, the one that was supposed to change and help them in this evolution of the way they play. And he may be back on the bench, at least in this match. That's at least some of the word coming out of Red Bull heading into this one. They could really use him because without him, you lose that creative engine, that brain to be able to break down teams. And that's been an issue for Red Bull. You'd say they're coming in with a little bit of confidence, both teams, though, with the emotional win from Sands' late winner, and then Van Zer and Manuel getting goals in their last game. So, but yeah, there's not much that separates them. So I think that's why this game is so intriguing to watch.
Hudson River Derby, don't miss it. This coming Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You can catch it right here on MLS Season Pass. Don't go anywhere. We got Matt Doyle joining us next. Welcome back into This is MLS. Kaylin Collin, a big welcome to Matt Doyle. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bradley Wright-Phillips and Sasha Kleshtin joining us from afar. So, gentlemen, let's get into it because the playoff race is hot over in the East. So let's take a look. Currently going into match day 35 in the Eastern Conference. Inter Miami, FC Cincinnati, Columbus Crew, all booking their ticket into the postgame. New York Red Bulls, Orlando City, Charlotte, NYCFC, Toronto, and the Philadelphia Union currently holding and rounding out those final playoff positions. Now, Doyle, when we look at this, the Philadelphia Union and Atlanta United, the remaining schedules for them. Philadelphia currently in 9th with 36 points, and for Atlanta sitting in 11th position. 3 points separate these two sides. Which one is making the playoffs?
The Philadelphia Union are making the playoffs. And we saw it in the standings. They're plus 10 goal differential. Everybody else in that group fighting for 8th to 9th place, they're all negative goal differential. So the Union are just a better team, and it's been especially apparent since Andre Blake got back. Andre Blake came back mostly healthy in the middle of July. Since then, across all competitions, Philadelphia Union are 7 wins, 3 draws, and just 2 losses. Both those losses are to the Columbus Crew, the team that we all think might be the best on the whole freaking continent. Here is the bad news for the Philadelphia Union. One of their remaining 4 games is against the Columbus Crew. Here is the good news. The other 3 games are not against the Columbus Crew. So I am not picking against this team. They have the best goalkeeper in the league. They have 2 hot goal scorers. The Union are making the playoffs.
Doyle, that's a tough schedule.
It is, but I like their chances.
Okay, I like it.
And I like their chances. One, because you said Andre Blake. There's not often you will talk about a goalkeeper as a game changer. Andre Blake, magnificent since he's got back in that side, but for me, it's the front 3. The Gazdag, Baribo, and Urwa. they've been on fire. It's not often you see a game where three players are scoring goals weekly. So dangerous. I think that will take them up the table. I have them firmly in the playoffs.
All right, well, a team that maybe is unexpected. They started this season very slow, got a new manager under BJ Callahan, and they're undefeated in their last 3 games. You think Nashville, Sasha, could be in the mix for a playoff position now?
Yeah, I think Nashville has a very good chance to make the playoffs, even after going on an 8-game losing streak just a few weeks ago. So they've turned things around in small ways. I like what BJ Callahan has done lately. We've seen more patterns of play of how you would want to see Nashville play with the players that they have. They're playing a little bit more downhill. They're playing with a little bit more speed, getting Hani Mukhtar on the ball, driving at the back line. That brings out the best in him. And I really like what we saw last weekend from Johnny Perez, the young winger who's on loan from the LA Galaxy, who has a lot of skill and a lot of talent in the final third. Walker Zimmerman holding it down in the back, and they have a favorable schedule coming in to close the season. At New England, very winnable this weekend, where the Revs, obviously, we saw the moment fighting with each other on the field at halftime. They are not in a good moment. It's very important for Nashville to go into New England and think that they can take 3 points.
To Sasha's point about Walker Zimmerman, he's like the center back version of Andre Blake in terms of being a guy who can be a game changer from back to front. I mean, he just changes how Nashville defend. But the silver lining in all of this, even if they don't make the playoffs, we're starting to see some chemistry between Hani and Sam Surridge. And these guys are on big numbers for a long time. Nobody's going anywhere. These 2 guys are both going to be back next year as DPs. Brad, you know what it's like as a center forward to have that kind of chemistry and how it can elevate both players.
It's no coincidence they start playing well. Sash, you mentioned style of play. It's in my notes. They have played a lot better football. They're getting Mukhtar higher up the field. But the 2 main guys that are supposed to be doing a job in getting and creating goals, Hani Mukhtar, 1 assist, 1 goal, 2 assists. Sam Surridge, 3 goals in the last 3 games. But the big thing for me is in those 3 games, there's 2 clean sheets. We were not seeing that from Nashville throughout this season, and that's a big, big point.
Their 3 DPs is what it comes down to. All 3 guys healthy, all 3 guys playing well. I agree with Sasha. I think they're making the playoffs.
Ooh, I
Wouldn't surprise me.
It's a big take for a slow start to the season. Again, that game, New England Revolution taking on Nashville this coming Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You can catch it right here on MLS Season Pass. All right, enough with the East. Let's jump over to the West Coast and take a look at our table right now. Currently, 3 teams booked their ticket through so far into the postseason. The Galaxy, RSL, the Colorado Rapids, LAFC struggling as of late, Houston Dynamo, the Seattle Sounders, Vancouver Whitecaps, Portland, and Minnesota United holding out those final playoff positions. But a big game happening. Vancouver taking on Portland this coming weekend. Currently, Vancouver in 7th spot with 46 points and Portland in 8th position in 44 points. BWP, when you're looking at this, I know you talk about Evander. I know you talk about Ryan Gall, Brian White, Vanni Sartini tweets at you. I don't know if he's texting you quite yet, but who's finishing higher?
Ooh. Vancouver. And not because they're, 2 points, I think it was above them, Portland. For me, they're just better at both sides of the ball. They play better all round as a team. We know the game changers. Fafa Picoult's been on fire. Brian White back in the side with a goal, and Ryan Gold, creative master. But for me, it's just how they are on both sides of the ball. They play against a Portland side on the weekend that are not good away from home, even though they get a decent result in Salt Lake. For me, Vancouver put it all together as a team more often than Portland do, so I have them finishing higher. And earlier in this season, we spoke on This Is MLS about what success is for Vancouver. And I thought finishing 4th, we spoke about, is very successful for a side that we wouldn't have put top 4. If they can get there, it will bring them to 5th place if they win this game. That's 1 point away from LAFC and with a home advantage for playoffs, so I have them finishing highest.
Brad, you're absolutely a liar. You just said Vancouver is better on both sides of the ball than Portland.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Look
but
at
the Portland
Portland's defensive record.
miles.
They don't defend
Okay,
that well.
I'm saying.
Sasha, come on now, behave. I'll give you Evander maybe in the mid
So
for the best
Vancouver's
number
away
10
from-
defensively.
Are you guys going to listen and let me finish my point?
Go
or are
on.
you guys
There's got to
gonna
be a
keep
joke
cutting me
behind
off?
this. Go on,
Talk.
Sash.
There's no joke. Brad said they're better on both sides of the ball. They are not. Portland is a better attacking team, and Vancouver is a better defending team.
I meant
The
rounded though,
statistics
Sash.
show that.
You're right there. I meant rounded. The balance. The balance, yes. But Portland are one of the best
fair
attackers.
enough.
Don't jump on Portland's bandwagon. I told you about this team early in the season. You didn't want to know. Now you want to know because the numbers
you're
are
right.
higher.
You're right. I don't know anything about anything in this league or any of the teams in the Western
But Sash, I'll
Conference.
make you
Wait,
right.
you
Yes.
played in this league, Sash?
I make you right, Sash. Yes, but I mean
Vancouver,
a more rounded side. That's what I meant.
Okay, and I'm with you. There. Vancouver is going to finish higher than Portland, and it's because Portland just can't keep the ball out of the back of their own net. They've given up 60-something goals this season.
Crazy.
That's just way too many to contend with anything. So I'm with you on Vancouver, but I'll take that Portland attack over that Vancouver attack any day of the week.
And I think even if Vancouver play well, I think in the playoffs, we would almost feel more comfortable with Portland just because they have so many match winners, and the guys on Vancouver haven't proven that yet. And one of the things that we've all sort of wanted from Vancouver is for them to go out and get more high-quality players. Now, Brian White, Ryan Gault, both really good players. As you mentioned, Brad, Fafa-Picault is scoring a lot of goals these days, but they did finally go out in the summer and add another DP attacker in Stuart Armstrong. We haven't gotten to see them all sort of on the field at the same time, and whether that can gel. If it does, I think we'll start to feel differently about what Vancouver can accomplish in the playoffs. Because remember, home field advantage or not, this team has ever won one playoff game. They've been in MLS for almost a decade and a half, won one playoff game. It's starting to feel like this season can be different for them. It would be good for them to show it in this game this weekend.
All right, just very quickly, because I'm never on This Is MLS, and I love winding people up, especially Sasha, and I'm wearing my Timbers jersey. Evander, MVP for you this season. Mind you, he won't be playing this weekend due to yellow card accumulation.
Right now, yes, but everything can change in the final 4 weeks. It's still up for grabs, but if I had to vote right now, Evander, yes.
It's hard to argue with that. But I've been saying this.
I'll argue
Doyle?
with it.
Yes.
It's still Lucho Acosta. The team is better. He has been central to everything they do. Not that Evander hasn't, but the stats are, roughly the same. Lucho's been better than he was last year when he won the MVP, and he has been just as crucial to a Cincinnati team that everything last year went right. This year, everything's gone wrong, and they're still in the top 3 in their conference, a real threat to win MLS Cup. Lucho's the MVP for me just because of that. The team is better.
Even with Evander's more goal contributions, and they're both very good on
two more goal
Still
contributions over the course
Still
of the
more.
season.
They're both, with them, why it's a good argument is because they're both good on the eye. I don't want to just go off numbers. They're both fun to watch. They both get fans out of their seats. But still, Evander's winning the numbers.
I won't cry if Evander wins MVP in this one. But to me, where you finish in the table matters a lot. And Cincinnati right now are a much better team in the table than Portland are.
Did you ever think season 2 BWP would be talking about numbers, Sasha, and XG? Behave yourself. All right, another massive game happening this coming weekend. St. Louis taking on Sporting Kansas City. 2 teams, Doyle, that really struggled at the start of this season. Now, there has been turnover for St. Louis. Sporting Kansas City has been in a roll as of late. Which team, as of right now, heading into next year, can we look most forward to on the pitch for better results?
I'm going to be like Sasha and sit on the fence on this one. I honestly like what both of these teams have done. With St. Louis, it was going out and having that really busy summer window in which they signed 6 new starters. Like, that's as busy a summer window as you could get, and it honestly looks like they went 6 for 6, and they're playing a lot better soccer. It's still not clear who their head coach is going to be next year. That worries me. I worry about their center backs as well. I'm not sure those guys are starting caliber for a playoff team. Whereas you get Sporting Kansas City, they haven't made that many big changes, but they're in the U.S. Open Cup final. And what Peter Vermees has done over the course of the year has give more of the sort of impetus with how the team is playing to guys like William Agata and Stephen Afrifa and Jake Davis now in central midfield. That's a good young core, and they've shown it since about mid-late June. I like the direction both teams are headed. Like I said, I'm with Sasha on the fence on this one.
That's not like you, man. I
Yeah,
was expecting
Doyle.
How am I on the fence?
I'm
Hold on a
disappointed.
second. What am I on the fence about? And I will absolutely not be on the fence on this. St. Louis, by far, will be better off in 2025
Facts, Sasha,
because they've
facts.
gone out this summer and got all the moves that they needed to get ahead of time. Now these guys have 6 months of MLS experience. Toy Shirt, Hartel, they've come in, they've looked very good right away. Imagine what they'll look like next season. We have no idea what Kansas City is going to do. They say they're going to go spend some money. They say they're going to do things. They're going to add players. I don't know. I'm not going to believe it until I see it. St. Louis is much further along right now and ready for 2025.
That does it for me. I got everyone riled up here on This Is MLS. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Sasha Kleshin, Matt Doyle, BWP, and myself, Kaylin Kyle. And good news for you guys. Jillian will be back next week.